Greetings, Uber-Tuber-Rubers, one and all. And whether you're high or low, or near or far, black or white, young or small. Wait, young or small? That didn't work. Young or old? Oh, I'm old. Hey, short talk in the park from an old guy. That would be me. And I don't know how we got there from here, but anyway, good to see it. And, I was thinking about this today some, and, you know, I couldn't really make much of it. And I thought, well, I can bang my gums flapping my mouth here, and, make all kinds of opinions and stuff, but that's easy. Anybody can do that. And I didn't want to just, talk like entirely off the cuff. I got a request, and then another request, second request from a couple of young ladies to do a little bit of a short talk in the trailer with the old guy concerning this current Israeli slash Hamas. Who is this? PLO? Is this the Palestinians this time? Is this Iran? Who's paying for this war? And when you think about it, how you get up in the morning, and you're thinking to yourself, let's see, what are we going to do today? Oh, I know. How about I take a shower? I'll brush my teeth. Maybe I'll shave my beard back a little bit. Nah, that takes time. And then you jump in your clothes, off to work. Boom, boom, boom. On the way to work, a meteor arrives from outer space, about the size of a truck. And as you're coming down at the corner of Espina and El Paseo, bam, it's right spot on. It's on top of your head. Boom, adios, you're done. Now, you didn't plan for that, right? I mean, you didn't wake up in the morning and go, let's see, things to do. Get hit in the head with a meteorite. No, they didn't have. So, in other words, the way that these things happen, they're so tragic. Families and little kids and stuff, and men and women, they're all not ill. Most of them are civilians who are being taken hostage and stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm wondering if those folks are even going to emerge, out of that mayhem and chaos. Oh, it's dark, it's ugly. I've been watching this kind of warring in the Middle East, well, most of my life. Now, I got a bad confession to make. I was very non-political, and I guess I still am, as a boy, so maybe it's not such a bad confession after all. But I think I lived through the Six-Day War. If I'm not entirely mistaken, and you can correct me on this, I think the Six-Day War occurred in the late 60s. Am I right? So I would have been like 9 or 10 or 8, somewhere in there. Apparently I was out to lunch. I was thinking about stuff like skateboards and blowing up stuff, and I wonder, can you bend steel with your mind? Whatever boys think about, and hey, I wonder what cigarettes taste like, and I started smoking young, legally, and not right. I was stealing cigarettes from my mom, and that's how a lot of people start smoking, about age 8, 9, 10, right in there. So at any rate, that's what was important to me. I wasn't paying attention to the world. But anyway, the Six-Day War, and then, of course, the horror at the Olympics in 72. And this is just dragged on and on. The PLO, the Intifadas they had, the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades, Hamas, Hezbollah, Fatah, I don't know how many groups. And it's all basically the same fanatics. After 9/11, I decided, what? Maybe the Crusaders weren't so far off after all, deciding to go slaughter these people. Maybe Rome had something on the ball here. So I decided I'm going to read the Quran. Ugh, that was a mistake. I never finished the stinker. It was just like, oh, sorry. It's a little bit like the Book of Mormon. You want to look at some bad writing, composed by a nut. But there's a weird, creepy feel to it. There's a supernaturalism there. In other words, I suspect demons are involved in terms of the authorship. There's something very close to true there, which is to say false, but in a false fashion. So we have 3 religions, supposedly, see, here at Jerusalem, and this is where the squabble is. The center of the fight is over HQ, what, Israel? I guess so. What's that? Jerusalem. And everything kind of swings around that like a pivot. Like, if you can imagine, the axis here at the North Pole. I don't know, I guess Admiral Perry found it, maybe a century or more ago. Anyway, a long time ago. And I don't know how the heck he figured out that he was actually there. Maybe he just guessed. But the point is that at the North Pole you have an axial spin of the Earth. How big around is that axis? How big of a spindle is it? Infinitely small. Functions as a geometric line, maybe, with no width dimension. Israel is the axis of the Earth, politically, spiritually, religiously. But what nobody on Earth seems to remember, and this is where I just vary so much with my Christian brothers. It seems that all I hear from people who believe in Jesus about this kind of thing. I mean, this isn't the first thing, this bloody transfer of violence and rage in the name of what? In the name of what? What were you hoping to gain, Hamas? Did you think you were really going to take over Israel? I don't think so. You knew there was coming a payback. Who's paying you? They're mercenaries. They're mercenaries. Somebody's paying these guys to fight. Think about it. You're a guy, you wake up, you live in Palestine, or you call it Palestine because that's your personal thing. Well, you got to go to work today. Why? Because you want to feed your family. And plus, you got to pay the bills. There's a roof to put over our head here, don't you know? And the car out front, you think that gas is free? So let's go to work, right? That ain't the PLO guy with the mask on his face and with the bomb on his back. No. And the AK-47 ain't the same guy. The guy who's paying the bills, the guy who's doing the right thing, the guy who's a family man and loves his children. I don't care if he's a Palestinian or not. He's not the guy who doing the, the head rag thing with the dark glasses and I'm going to blow you up. And I'm going to say scary things in the name of Allah. And, nah. It's two groups, and the group of the mercenaries, as they call them, the terrorists or the true believers. I mean, from their side, that's the way they would look at it. It's those rascals versus the government of Israel, which is kind of like they got police, they got military, they got state benefits, they got offices, and it's just mostly people. But in Israel, everyone has to be part of the military at some point during their life. Probably not a bad idea, especially if you're Israel. But at any rate, as far as I see it, Israel is a Western-style democracy, decent generally by and large. Now they have been generating hostility against Christians. This is my point, and that's how I wanted to introduce it. Israel, the nation, has not lately been very friendly to Christianity in terms of, Christian pilgrimages, people who want to go visit Bethlehem and see where Jesus walked, maybe at the Sea of Galilee or, where the tour thing, the thing they got going on over there. Now, I look at the whole thing a little bit different. And the way I see it is, when Jesus came in his life, I guess it was 32, 33 AD when he died, I think. I'm not a real true scientist like that, historian. But anyway, let's just call it 32 AD when he died. He was 33, we believe, when he died as an adult male. Well, something happened at that time. The temple at the nearby, temple. The temple had a curtain, a huge. It was really a thick woven thing. The sucker probably weighed hundreds of pounds. For a curtain, that's pretty heavy. And I don't know why it was so dreadfully heavy. A curtain only needs to be like my blanket behind here just so you don't see through it, right? Just trying to cover up the shabby linen hanging in front of the windows with shabby blankets. Now, the situation was when they rejected him back then, something violent happened in, I believe, 70 AD. Rome came in under, I think it was Pompey, that part I'm making up, and basically destroyed Jerusalem. They sacked it. They took the temple and basically disassembled it. They burned everything and stole all the gold, too, in the meantime. But the thing is that the Jews had rejected Messiah, their awaited one, the one since from Adam and Eve was announced. There comes a seed of the woman who shall crush the head of the serpent. He shall prevail. All through the Old Testament, it shows up. He's a little bit like Noah, the one who man's the lifeboat, that when the life of the world is being snuffed out and wiped out completely, only in the boat, only under Noah and his headship is their life and is their renewal. See, this is the one they were waiting for. Well, they rejected him. They said, you're a fraud. And they made themselves the enemies of the church. Because see, early on, the church and the Jewish institutions were not that different. They really were one and the same in many ways, but they had different opinions. And they began to draw apart. And at some point, there was a decisive cut. There was no linkage anymore between the Jewish synagogue and the Christian church. I don't know exactly when that happened, but I believe it was after the death of the apostles. It went on for quite a while. But at any rate, what we're saying here is that Jerusalem at the center of everything, if it's the axis of all political axiom, if it's the heartbeat of your true blue patriotism, if it's the census vote on your scriptural integrity and your view of prophecy and all that junk, I don't want to hear it. Frankly, I don't care. What I see is no. There's something dreadful that's being forgotten. There's 3 religions at Jerusalem. There's Christianity, the true blue, which is actually what the Jews were originally holding on to. And now I know that sounds confusing, but what I'm saying is that the believers of the Old Testament, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, David, King so-and-so, the prophets, the priests, in other words, all that mighty throng of Jewish believers, we're not different people. What's happened is Gentiles have been grafted into believing Israel. That's the true olive plant. The believing olive plant is the Christian church. You might call them messianic believers. If you're looking for an interesting group of believers, go find some messianic ones. Their links back to the Jewish faith make for a very vital and interesting take. But in other words, the point of this is, you want to interpret the news right now, right here? Sorry, you got the wrong gringo. But the thing is, see, that's what they always do. They always want to give you a hurry up. Okay, here's the deal. By analyzing this position right now in space-time, I can determine that we're on page 243 of the book of Revelation, chapter 5, verse 7. You can find supposedly where you are in the book of Revelation by studying the news and getting real good at interpretation. A key word here, interpretation. And I look at that stuff and think, well, yes, you could sell that stuff, but I'm not going to buy it. And so I think about it this way. 3 faiths? I don't think so. There's Christianity, the new and the living way in which Jesus, Messiah, King, enters our world and basically takes it over, but peacefully, in a way most loving and kind and astonishingly patient. Oh, this guy put up with so much from people like you and me. He could have just snuffed us out. And he didn't. See, that's the whole point. He's spreading his gospel. He's spreading his kingdom of light. His kingdom of light is rooted in his word. Go read the Bible and hear it. Understand what it's saying. Ask for help. Hey, go like this, pray like this. Hey, Spirit, help me get this. I'm not too good at this stuff. He hears. And so the idea is, every time you hear a position being broken down to a bipolar scheme, there's only 2 options. See, you can see them right there, 2. And they cross. And it becomes a double cross and a double cross. And so you end up with prestige and espionage and lies and sex and murder and all the political junk. It all gets rolled up in this horrendous stack like a big, opera that you keep thinking this has got to end soon. And it's just error upon error, error upon error. That doesn't help anybody. Here's the deal. You want to understand Hamas and Israel today? Then understand this. The real fight in the Middle East is not between Jew and Palestinian. Start there. The real fight in the Middle East is the same fight that's going on in your heart right now. Between Jesus Christ the righteous, who claims his own and moves forward whether you like it or not. He's conquering his enemies. Get out of the way or participate, but you cannot stop him. See, he's on a roll. He's captured hearts, man. And so the point is, that's at the center of this dispute. Remember, the Jews The Jews rejected this man. They've rejected him still. And as for the Muslims, oh boy, you go back and read the so-called Quran. Ugh. I mean, it's so contradictory. I mean, on one page it says, honor the people of the book. That would be Christians and Jews. Honor them. They believe in the same God as you and I. Page 2. Murder the infidels. That would be your Jews and Christians, because God hates them. And by that, you'll score points with him when you do. In other words, he's easy to bribe. They don't say it that way. But the point is, we keep thinking of it, is it Palestinian, Arab, Muslim, probably what? Shia or Sunni? Shia or Sunni? I'm guessing Shia. I don't know. I know that the Shia hate the Sunni and the Sunni hate the Shia. But basically, Iran is the sponsor here. They have this huge finger going, that came from us. And you Americans paid for it. There was this huge cash transfer to Iran recently. Do you remember that? Perhaps you and I basically bought the weapons that were raining down on Israel from the Hamas side. Have you considered that? Maybe you should talk to your congressman. Do you see the corruption is just everywhere? It's just astonishing. And the profiteers just profit and profit and profit. They never get called on the carpet. Hey, that kind of rhymes almost. The way to see the Jewish and Hamas situation right now is that there's a third party that no one's willing to acknowledge. Even the two parties who are involved. And until they do, war will rage. Jew, do you hear me? Go listen to your fellow Jews. There are many who have met Messiah. They call him Yeshua. Good stories of men and women who've been converted just like you, Jewish to the core, raised, and all you knew was Jewishness, and all of a sudden something new happened. Considered, well, friend, time is growing short. As for you Arab fellas and women, I've read your book some. I don't respect it. Not really. It contradicts itself. And I honestly think that your leader was a villain. He really was. He was a murdering infidel himself who was sodomizing children, I guess. I hate to say it. He essentially was dealing with a jinn, D-J-I-N-N, and that thing delivered the book, the information. Very similar to another leader called Joseph Smith. I ain't going there. So in other words, the point is, I don't respect that religion. But the point is they have their claims, and so anyway, these two claims, counterclaims, Jew versus Muslim, that dominates the news. The talking heads are on that page. But the one thing they'll never say is, guess what? You know who the king in Jerusalem is? I mean, really is right now, this day? Jesus of Nazareth. Would you like to know who owns Jerusalem? Jesus of Nazareth. Do you think that maybe he, the Lord God himself, he being so good, would care to reach out to his own Jewish people and call them home and bring them to faith? Oh, I do. So in other words, what's happening is, as Jesus stirs his children alive, the powers of hell don't like that stuff. They don't like that, not at all. And so what they do, I mean the powers of hell down there, they motivate their human pawns, their human leaders, as they call them. Basically, they're human slaves. They manipulate their human slaves into essentially doing acts of violence, lawlessness, mayhem, murder, and indecency, everything that is erroneous, everything that's lawless, in the name, might I add, of the great and holy God. Not convincing, says this gringo. Not at all. And so that there's a mess at the bottom of it. But what I do is I try to take good news out of bad, because I mean the good news is strong. The light is stronger than the darkness. You want to get depressed, go read the news. You want to get depressed, go watch CNN. And the thing is, you want to get depressed, think about who's the president. Ugh. And oh my gosh, ugh. Whoa, don't get me started. That was a trap. And so I just want to say, I'm not really competent to argue for or against policy, national, international, or not. whether or not the United States should or should not back the state of Israel. My personal feeling is, yes, most certainly they should. Israel, at the very least, has this in common with us. They believe in a parliamentary form of representative government whereby the decent enactment of rights and legislative protection to the individual, as is not seen in other countries, nor shall ever be seen, in that it is a fruit of Christian witness. It's the Christians in politics who generated the idea that you could have a representative republic where people would govern themselves responsibly. Well, how's that going to happen? Only the headship of Jesus Christ. Otherwise, forget it. And even our leaders knew it. Several of them commented to this effect. So in order for the Federal Republic of the United States to exist and to keep going, it would need to, by definition, need to be at least favorable to a Christian, conservative, and Jesus-centered viewpoint. Otherwise, the house of cards is coming down. And that's what we're seeing. Because let's face it, right now, the Christian witness is not high on the list of certain people like Hillary Clinton who would like to see me in a re-education camp for the opinions heretofore expressed in this video, whether or not I live to talk about it or not, because we know those who cross Hillary have strange habits of disappearing. So at any rate, the point is, Hamas, Israel, it's been going on and on and on. This is an outrage. It's horrible. There's people dying. There's families saddened, little girls, little boys, old men, little ladies, people with their arms blown off, all kinds of stuff. I mean, the property damage is not a good thing to get involved with when we're talking about the trauma. But what I mean is, houses falling on top of people and stuff. I mean, it's horrible. The war is hell. War is hell. Somebody said that. He was a military leader. I wish I could remember his name. I don't like war, but I do. I look at all this evil. I look at all these lies. I look at all this double talk. At some point, somebody's going to pay. At some point, this too halts. And the retribution coming from on high against wickedness is intolerable. No human being nor any cadre of devils could hope to survive it. And they know that. He's coming. He's armed for war, and he's going to tear their heads off, for starters. Physically, or with his sword. But the point is, there's a time for war, and guess who owns it? Yahweh. The I am who is warrior king. The one Moses sang about and his sister Miriam. They knew him as warrior champion. We've forgotten that. That's a part of the message. See, I want a war in Israel, but I want a war where Jesus wins. I don't care about the Jew. I don't care about the Muslim. In fact, I'm not really that interested in the fate of the Christian in Israel. Jesus shall prevail. He shall prevail over all of his enemies, and it doesn't even matter whether you like it or not. You don't have to agree. You can't change it. And that's the missing part of the Hamas trauma. It's like, someone tells you, you know what, hey, guess what, I hate to mention this, but, someone just killed your mother. What? And then on the way out the door, killed your dog. What? I mean, it's like, golly, how much am I supposed to go through in a day? And that's nothing right there, that sorry little example. That's nothing compared to having your arm blown off, or just watching your wife get shot in the head from 3 feet away or whatever, or getting taken hostage and being tortured and stuff. I mean, all kinds of horrible things happen day by day. It's a dark, mean, ugly world. That's the reality. And in it, his children triumph by giving thanks to him for granting them the patience and the endurance to accept in their bodies torment and whatever comes to his praise. Because the situation is this: nobody's getting out here alive unless you happen to be among that cadre who are standing here on earth alive in the body when Jesus shows up. It could happen, and it might be you. Think about it. Would you like to be there? Call upon him and ask for it. But the point is, He's at the center of things. He's at the center of everything, whether you even understand that or not. It doesn't matter whether you even understand it. The point is, believe it, and you will believe unto understanding. We keep getting it backwards. We keep thinking that I first have to understand everything before I can believe it. That's heresy. No, you believe the word of the one who speaks because he speaks to you, and you believe him. And then later you begin, since you believe him, you begin to gain some understanding. We've got it exactly backwards. And so if you want to understand first and then believe, you're always going to be wrong. And whenever you go and look at Israel versus Hamas, you're always going to get it wrong. You have to. You're beginning on faulty legs. But if you believe at your heart that Jesus is the cornerstone, he's the capstone, he's the mediator himself, he's the center of our hearts, he's the reward himself, he's the treasure. That's just for starters. And he's expanding his kingdom right now in Jerusalem. And there's a lot of violence. The powers below manipulate their slaves, and they import chaos. They don't want to see these things happening, and they'll do almost anything, including bombing civilians, to make sure that gospel outreach and Christian witness does not go on. Now, you might call me a crank, and you might call me that crazy, but think about it. It isn't the fate of nations which is eternal. Those suckers are flash in the pan. They might be here 200 years, and they might be here 1,000. So what? You're an eternal creature. C.S. Lewis taught me that. You're an eternal creature. You're an infinity more valuable than any kingdom of earth by simply the fact that you don't die in Christ. And so what happens then is we begin to import this new and living way into our world, into our person, and we hope into our words and actions. Some. I mean, are we perfect at it? Please don't get started. No, I'm not perfect as a Christian. In fact, I'm so far from it, it's kind of scary. But the point is, when we consider all these things about a world situation, Hamas, Israel, who's going to win? Well, my cards are with Israel. I say they're going to slap them in the hoo-hoo and knock them down. And they will prevail, and it's not going to be a big deal. It's just a gang of mercenaries that we're talking about. It's not an army. There is no other government they're fighting. It's just a gang of mercs. And they can hunt them down. They got good intel. Real good. Mossad's real good. And, well, like the CIA is good. I don't want to mix metaphors here. The point is, when we consider the news, we need to consider the fact that at the center of things, whether we acknowledge it or not, or even are aware of it, Jesus of Nazareth is cooking up a stew, and it's called, the smell of it is life. The taste of it is hope. It enlightens the eyes. I think I can hear better. He makes us young again. He renews from the inside out. He's at the center of the news. But the so-called news heads, the talking heads, they don't know it. Not even the Christians. That's my take. Cindy, if that helped, good for you. Chiakisworld, I need to go back and watch some more of your videos because I've been, frankly, lazy. So I'll go back and watch some of your stuff. I do like your work. Interesting stuff. You have a nice touch. I like to see how you do that stuff. How you blend images. And the words, it's always, why am I always reading subtitles? I'd like to hear your voice someday. But maybe you're just shy. Anyway, I'm glad about the way you make your videos, and keep on rocking. You're an interesting person, and thanks for your input too. Maybe we'll cover some other topics in the future, we hope. Short talk in some other place, maybe even here, with an old guy. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to say, my friend that did the electrical work, it's just, why has it been packaged in the middle? Recently, last night, I noticed the power last night. I was eagle-eyed. See, looks like a little eagle. No, it doesn't. But the, not even a little bit. That was stupid. The lights don't flicker. Now they're not, well, actually only one's on over here, but that's an LED and that's a low draw anyway, so I don't think that's a fair. So I had the lights on last night. Anyway, I think the power situation, all that weird flutter and hiccup stuff, where it finally just went, plah, I'm out. I think that's over. It was just a matter of him doing a reconnection, shorten the wire, and I couldn't believe how bad that installation looked. It was all cracked, and oh my gosh, how long has this stuff been there? Oh, only 50 years. Plastic insulation does break down. Keep that in mind. Don't count on that being a forever thing. Go home to your friends, go home to your wife, go home to your husband, and sit down with them tonight or tomorrow and say, you know what? I just sat down and this morning I wrote a list of 2 things about you, which I'd like to say. Yeah, what would that be? It's 2 things I like. Okay, so sit down and think about somebody you like, somebody you admire. Might be your mom, might be your sister, I don't know. And just sit them down and say, look, I'm going to read this to you. I don't care what you say. You got to sit still or I'm going to punch you in the face. And just tell them why you like them. You don't have to mention even the word love. Just tell them, you know what? You're responsible. You matter, because when you speak, people listen, or whatever your comments are. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but make a little goal, say something good to somebody near you, and bond up with people that talk sense, because the birds that you hang around with are the same kind of birds that you is. So hang with good birds and be improved. Have a good evening. Bye bye.